The morning Marcus Reynolds logged into his company email and saw the announcement that tech giant Meridian Industries had acquired his employer. He had no idea that the mysterious A. Chen, listed as the new billionaire CEO, was actually his wife, Dr. Alicia Chen Reynolds, the woman he'd been secretly planning to divorce for months, the woman whose joint account he was about to drain of $847,000 to fund his wedding to her best friend, the woman who'd spent the last 18 months building a tech empire in stealth mode, while he dismissed her little startup as a hobby. Alicia had sacrificed 15 years supporting Marcus's career, using her Stanford connections to get him promotions, working 3 jobs to pay for his MBA, and raising their autistic son alone while Marcus traveled for work, only to discover he'd been sleeping with Jessica Park, her college roommate and maid of honor, the woman who'd held Alicia's hand through postpartum depression and now held her husband's hand in hotel rooms charged to their credit card. Marcus planned to empty their account that Friday, marry Jessica the following week, and blindside Alicia with divorce papers. But how would he react when he discovered his new CEO was the wife he'd betrayed? What would happen when the woman he called too emotional for business became his boss, holding his career in her hands? And what would Marcus do when Alicia Chen, the billionaire he'd unknowingly mocked in meetings, decided that crushing him wasn't about revenge? It was about teaching him the cost of betrayal in a way he'd never forget. Alicia Chen Reynolds sat in her son's bedroom at 2 a.m., watching 7-year-old Tyler sleep fitfully, his weighted blanket providing the pressure that calmed his anxiety. The behavioral therapist had warned that changes in routine could trigger meltdowns, and Marcus's increasing absence was definitely a change. Tyler had asked 3 times that week where Daddy was, why he didn't come to dinner anymore, why he smelled like the wrong perfume when he finally came home. Alicia had deflected with practiced ease, the same way she'd been deflecting the truth from herself for months. The apartment they'd bought 5 years ago had felt spacious then, but now it seemed to shrink around her, a cage built on compromises she'd made for a marriage that was dying by degrees. She'd given up the tenure-track position at MIT to follow Marcus to Seattle when he got the software engineering job at Tech Core Solutions. She'd put her own PhD in computer science on hold to work 3 jobs, adjunct teaching, freelance coding, and weekend consulting, to pay for his executive MBA at Wharton. She'd been the one to stay up with Tyler during his diagnosis, the therapy sessions, the sleepless nights when their son's autism made the world too loud and too bright. Marcus had been there for the easy parts, the good days, but vanished when things got hard. Her laptop screen glowed in the darkness, showing the Slack channel where her own employees, people Marcus didn't know existed, were finalizing the acquisition paperwork. Meridian Industries, her company, the little startup Marcus condescendingly asked about when he remembered, was about to become public. She'd founded it 18 months ago with 2 former Stanford classmates, building AI-driven infrastructure software in stealth mode, meeting investors while Marcus thought she was at book club or therapy. The company had grown explosively, quietly, and when Microsoft had offered $8.2 billion for acquisition, Alicia had negotiated up to $12 billion, with the stipulation that she'd remain CEO of the new subsidiary and have acquisition authority. Her first acquisition was going to be Tech Core Solutions, Marcus's employer, the company where he'd worked for 8 years. The company where he'd met Jessica Park, who joined as HR director 2 years ago. Jessica, who'd been Alicia's roommate at Stanford, who'd been her maid of honor, who'd held Tyler at his baptism. Jessica, whose perfume Alicia now recognized on Marcus's shirts. The credit card statement sat on her desk, months of hotel charges she'd noticed but hadn't wanted to see. The Fairmont, the Edgewater, boutique hotels downtown. Dinners at Canlis, at the Walrus and the Carpenter. Restaurants Marcus said were client meetings. She'd found the text 3 weeks ago, left carelessly open on his laptop. Messages that made her skin crawl, that spoke of love and future plans and how Alicia will never see it coming. They were planning to marry. Marcus was going to divorce her, take half of what he thought were modest assets, and marry her best friend. The text laid it all out. Empty the joint account on Friday when his bonus hit. File for divorce on Monday, move in with Jessica, and be married before Alicia could get emotional and complicate things. What Marcus didn't know, what Jessica didn't know, what no one except her lawyers and her board knew, was that Alicia Chen Reynolds, the too emotional wife who didn't understand business, was worth $4.8 billion personally and controlled a company valued at $12 billion. That she'd been using her maiden name, A. Chen, for all business dealings. That the modest joint account he planned to empty held exactly $847,000. Money she'd deliberately left there, bait in a trap she'd been setting for months. Alicia closed her laptop and looked at Tyler, her son. The child Marcus had stopped really seeing the moment his autism diagnosis made parenting complicated. Marcus had wanted Tyler in institutional care, had suggested they explore options that would make their life easier. Alicia had refused, had fought for in-home therapy, for inclusion, for treating their son like the brilliant, sensitive child he was, rather than an inconvenience. She'd cried enough. She'd mourned the marriage already, alone, in stolen moments between board meetings and bedtime routines. Now came the next phase, the one where she stopped being the supportive wife and became something else entirely. Not vengeful, but precise, calculated, fair in the way that justice is fair, even when it destroys. The acquisition of TechCore Solutions would be announced Monday morning. Marcus would discover his new CEO was his wife on Tuesday, during the all-hands meeting she'd specifically requested to attend. And Friday, when he tried to empty their joint account, he'd discover that Alicia had beaten him to it, not to take the money, but to freeze the account through legal channels, with documentation of his planned theft attached to divorce papers that would paint him exactly as he was. She wasn't going to shout or cry or beg. She was going to dismantle his life with the same precision she used to write code, one logical step at a time, until Marcus Reynolds understood exactly what he'd thrown away and exactly what it cost to betray someone who'd given him everything. Monday morning arrived with Seattle rain, the kind of persistent drizzle that made the city feel gray and close. Marcus Reynolds adjusted his tie in the bathroom mirror, smiling at his reflection. He'd gotten a text from HR that morning, mandatory all-hands meeting at 10 a.m. to meet the new leadership after the acquisition. He'd heard rumors that Microsoft had bought TechCore, but details had been scarce. "Big news today," he said to Alicia, who was making Tyler's breakfast, carefully cutting his toast into precise squares the way he needed. "We got acquired. Should mean a nice bump in salary, maybe stock options." Alicia didn't look up. "That's good, Marcus. I hope it works out well for you." Her tone was neutral, almost disinterested, and it irritated him. This was his career, his success, and she couldn't even muster enthusiasm. Jessica would have celebrated with him, would have understood what this meant. Jessica got his ambitions in a way Alicia never had. "I might be late tonight," he added, checking his phone where Jessica had texted, "Can't wait for Friday. Our life together starts soon. Love you. Probably drinks with the team to celebrate." "Of course," Alicia said. Tyler was humming, stimming with his hands in a way that made Marcus uncomfortable. Too visible, too obvious. He kissed the top of his son's head perfunctorily and left without kissing his wife. At TechCore, the office buzzed with nervous energy. Acquisitions meant uncertainty, possible layoffs, restructuring. Marcus felt confident, though. He was a senior engineer, well-liked, valuable. He'd survive any cuts. In fact, he might even leverage this for a promotion. The conference room filled to capacity, people standing along the walls. The usual executives were there, looking tense, and then the video screen flickered on, showing a woman in a sharp navy suit, standing in what looked like a much larger, more modern office. "Good morning, TechCore team," she said, her voice professional and calm. "I'm Dr. Alicia Chen, CEO of Meridian Industries. As of today, TechCore Solutions is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Meridian." Marcus froze. The room seemed to tilt. Dr. Alicia Chen, A. Chen, his wife. His wife was on the screen, looking nothing like the exhausted woman who made toast in their kitchen. This woman was polished, authoritative, commanding a room of hundreds with effortless confidence. Around him, colleagues murmured in surprise. "She's so young." "Apparently she's brilliant," sold her last company for billions. This is huge for us. His phone buzzed. Jessica, sitting in the HR section, had texted, "OMG, is that your wife?" On screen, Alicia continued, "I'm looking forward to integrating TechCore's innovations with Meridian's resources. We'll be making some structural changes, improving efficiency, and ensuring we have the right people in the right positions. Over the next week, I'll be conducting performance reviews personally for all senior staff." She looked directly at the camera, and Marcus felt like she was looking at him specifically. "I believe in meritocracy, in rewarding loyalty and ethical behavior, and in ensuring that everyone in my companies shares my values of integrity and respect. Those who meet these standards will find tremendous opportunities for growth. Those who don't will be shown the door." The meeting ended. The room erupted in chatter. Marcus sat frozen, his mind racing. Alicia was a CEO? A billionaire? How was this possible? She'd never mentioned. But then he realized she had mentioned it. She'd talked about her startup, her meetings, her investors. He'd dismissed it all, called it a hobby, teased her about her cute little company. He'd been so focused on his own career, on Jessica, on escaping his marriage, that he'd completely missed his wife building an empire. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. "Jessica, we need to talk. This changes everything." His mother. "Your wife is a Chen? The tech billionaire? Why didn't you tell me?" Colleagues wanting to know if he could get them FaceTime with the new CEO, asking if he'd known, congratulating him on being married to a genius. He texted Alicia. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her response came 20 minutes later. "You never asked. See you at home." That evening, Marcus found Alicia in Tyler's room, helping him with a puzzle. She looked up when he entered, her expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he said. "Yes, we do," she agreed. "Tyler, sweetheart, can you play with your tablet for a bit? Daddy and I need to have a grown-up conversation." Tyler nodded, putting on his noise-canceling headphones and settling in with his iPad. Alicia led Marcus to their bedroom and closed the door. "You're a billionaire," he said, the words sounding absurd spoken aloud. "You run a massive company. Why didn't you tell me?" "I did tell you, Marcus, multiple times. You called it my hobby. You said I was playing startup and needed to focus on reality. Do you remember that conversation? It was 8 months ago, right after my Series B funding closed." He did remember, vaguely. He'd been annoyed that she was spending so much time on her computer, missing dinners, distracted. "I didn't realize—" "No, you didn't realize because you stopped paying attention to me years ago," Alicia interrupted, her voice still calm but with steel underneath. "You stopped seeing me as a person, as a partner. I became just a fixture, someone to raise Tyler while you lived your life." "That's not fair," he protested, but his heart was pounding. "I've been working hard for our family, using my connections to get promoted, using my money to get your MBA, using my emotional labor to maintain our household while you checked out." She pulled out her phone and showed him a screen. "Should we talk about the Fairmont, the Edgewater, the $3,147 you spent at Canlease on your client dinner with Jessica?" The blood drained from his face. "You know, I've known for months, Marcus, about the affair, about your plans to empty our account on Friday, about the wedding you're planning, about everything." She showed him another screen, screenshots of his texts with Jessica, hotel reservations, even a saved draft of his divorce filing. "I'm a tech CEO, Marcus. Did you really think I couldn't access your digital footprint?" He felt sick. "Alicia, I found out 4 months ago," she continued, relentless, "and I had a choice. I could confront you immediately, have a messy divorce, disrupt Tyler's therapy routine during a critical period, or I could be strategic. I could acquire your company, secure my position, document everything, and ensure that when this marriage ended, it would be on my terms. With my son protected and your betrayal fully exposed." "You bought my company to spy on me?" he asked, incredulous. "I bought your company because it was a good acquisition that fit Meridian's portfolio," she corrected. "That you work there was just convenient timing. Though I did specifically request to review all senior personnel files, and yours was very interesting reading. Did you know that Jessica has been falsifying expense reports? That the two of you have been charging personal expenses to company accounts for 18 months? That's embezzlement, Marcus. Fireable. Possibly prosecutable. His legs felt weak. He sat on the bed. What do you want? I want you to understand what you threw away, Alicia said quietly. Not for money. You clearly never cared about my success anyway. But you threw away someone who loved you enough to work 3 jobs for your dreams, who sacrificed her own career for yours, who fought for our son when you wanted to give up on him. And you threw it away for what? For Jessica? For the fantasy that someone else would be easier, less complicated? I love her, he said, but even to his own ears it sounded hollow. You love that she doesn't challenge you, doesn't need anything from you, makes you feel like the success you're not, Alicia corrected. But that's not my problem anymore. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to be terminated from TechCore effective immediately for cause. The embezzlement, the ethics violations. Your severance is voided. Jessica is also being terminated. The documentation goes to the State Bar Association, which will be interested in her fraudulent conduct. You can't. I can. And I already have. The papers were filed this morning. She handed him an envelope. These are divorce papers. You'll notice I'm requesting full custody of Tyler. You signed an affidavit 6 months ago saying you wanted him institutionalized, which any family court will view unfavorably. You'll have supervised visitation only. The joint account is frozen as of this morning, with all funds secured pending forensic accounting. I've also filed a restraining order preventing you from accessing any marital property, pending the divorce. Marcus felt like he was drowning. You're taking everything. No, Marcus, I'm keeping what was always mine. The company I built, the son I raised, the life I created while you were busy destroying our family. You can keep your personal belongings, your car, and whatever's in your individual account. I think it's about $12,000. That's more than fair considering what you plan to do. What about Jessica? He asked desperately. What about our plans? Alicia's smile was cold. Jessica was sent a comprehensive dossier this morning detailing exactly how much I'm worth, how much you were planning to take from me, and how you've been lying to her about our assets. I explained that you were leaving me, a billionaire CEO, for a relationship built on theft and betrayal, and that you just cost both of you your careers. She called me 3 hours ago, crying, apologizing, begging for her job back. She ended your relationship, Marcus. You're not just losing me, you're losing everything. He couldn't breathe. This is vindictive. This is cruel. This is consequences, Alicia corrected. I'm not being cruel. I'm being precise. You made calculated choices to betray me, to steal from me, to abandon our son. I'm simply ensuring you experience the full weight of those choices. You wanted to leave me for a better life? Now you get to see exactly what life you were leaving. I'll fight this, he said, standing up, anger replacing shock. I'll sue. With what money? What lawyer? I've already retained the 3 best divorce attorneys in Seattle, so you can't use them. Conflict of interest. Your professional reputation is destroyed. Your personal account is frozen pending the fraud investigation. You have no leverage, Marcus. None. She walked to the door, then paused. I've packed your belongings. They're in the guest room. I need you out by tomorrow morning. And Marcus? I hope Jessica was worth it. I hope those hotel rooms and fancy dinners were worth losing your family, your career, and any shred of dignity you had left. Because you're going to spend the rest of your life knowing that you had everything and threw it away for nothing. She left him sitting on the bed, the divorce papers in his hands, his world crumbling around him. The next 3 months were a masterclass in systematic destruction. Alicia didn't have to lift a finger beyond what she'd already set in motion. Marcus's own choices did the rest. Jessica had indeed ended their relationship, horrified by the revelation that she'd helped him betray a billionaire and destroyed her own career in the process. She moved back to California, reputation shattered in the Seattle tech scene. Marcus tried to contact her dozens of times, but she blocked him, refusing to be associated with the scandal. Marcus's termination and the embezzlement investigation became industry news. Tech blogs covered it. senior engineer at acquired startup, fired for fraud. His LinkedIn was flooded with connection removals. Job applications went unanswered. The combination of his public humiliation, married to a billionaire CEO while stealing from joint accounts, and his professional misconduct made him toxic. He tried to see Tyler, but the supervised visitation requirements meant paying for a court-appointed supervisor, which he couldn't afford. The one session he did attend was devastating. Tyler, coached by therapists, asked him why he'd wanted to send him away, why he didn't love him anymore. Marcus had left in tears, unable to answer. His mother called once, furious. "You were married to Alicia Chen and you cheated on her with her best friend and tried to steal from her? What is wrong with you, Marcus?" She hadn't called since. Friends distanced themselves. The narrative was too clear, too damning. Ambitious man married to brilliant woman uses her connections to advance his career, then tries to abandon his autistic son and rob his wife while she's building a billion-dollar company. There was no spin that made him sympathetic. He moved into a studio apartment in a bad neighborhood, working gig economy jobs, driving for Uber, delivering food, because no tech company would touch him. His degree, his experience, his entire career meant nothing against the stain of his reputation. The divorce was finalized in record time. Alicia got full custody of Tyler, the house, all marital assets, which were mostly hers anyway. Marcus got nothing but debt, legal fees from a public defender trying to fight the embezzlement charges, credit card bills from the affair he thought was his ticket to happiness. Meanwhile, Alicia's company thrived. Meridian Industries expanded, acquiring 2 more companies, her net worth climbing past $6 billion. She appeared on magazine covers, was named one of Fortune's most powerful women, spoke at tech conferences about ethics and leadership. And she always mentioned Tyler, showed pictures of her son, talked about neurodiversity and inclusion. She made Marcus's abandonment of their child part of her public narrative, never naming him directly, but making it clear she was a single mother by choice after her ex-husband had failed their family. 6 months after the divorce, Marcus sat in his studio apartment, eating ramen, watching a YouTube interview with Alicia. The interviewer asked about work-life balance as a single mother. "My son is my priority," Alicia said, smiling. "Everything I build for him. His father chose to leave us, which was painful, but it also freed us to be ourselves. Tyler is thriving now, in an environment full of love and support. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is show you their true character, so you know exactly who deserves a place in your life." The interviewer nodded sympathetically. "There were rumors about the circumstances of your divorce." "I don't discuss my ex-husband," Alicia said simply. "He made his choices, and he's living with them. I've moved on to building a life that reflects my values, integrity, loyalty, responsibility. I hope he finds peace, but that's no longer my concern." Marcus turned off the video, his hands shaking. He'd thought he was so smart, playing the game, trading up for a better life. But Alicia had been playing a different game entirely. One where she held all the pieces, saw every move, and controlled the entire board. He'd lost everything, not just his marriage and son, but his career, his reputation, his future. He was 42 years old, delivering food for a living, blocked from his chosen profession, estranged from his child, and known industry-wide as the cautionary tale about what happens when you betray someone who's smarter, more successful, and more strategic than you ever realized. The worst part was knowing that Alicia hadn't done this out of rage or spite. She'd done it out of precision, out of a calculated understanding that actions have consequences, and that some betrayals deserve to be answered with systematic destruction. She'd loved him once, had given him everything, and he'd thrown it away for a fantasy that evaporated the moment reality hit. He'd wanted to upgrade his life. Instead, he'd destroyed it completely. And Alicia Chen, the woman he'd called too emotional for business, had ensured he'd spend the rest of his life knowing exactly what he'd lost and exactly how much of it was his own fault. 3 years later, Marcus was still in Seattle, still delivering food, still alone. He'd seen exactly one photograph of Tyler, now 10, in a tech magazine article about Alicia's advocacy for neurodivergent children in STEM. His son looked happy, healthy, confident. Marcus was in none of the pictures, had no part in that life. He'd been crushed completely and utterly, not by vindictive cruelty, but by the simple, devastating truth. He'd bet everything on the wrong horse, abandoned the one person who truly loved him, and learned too late that betrayal doesn't just destroy relationships, it destroys the betrayer too. Alicia Chen had taught him that lesson with surgical precision, and Marcus Reynolds would carry it for the rest of his life, a monument to the cost of arrogance and the price of throwing away something irreplaceable for something worthless. 5 years after the divorce, Alicia Chen stood in the audience at Tyler's middle school science fair, watching her 12-year-old son explain his project on neural networks and pattern recognition to a panel of judges. He spoke with confidence, his hands moving animatedly, occasionally stimming when he got excited about a particular concept, completely unself-conscious. The judges were captivated. "He's brilliant," said a voice beside her. Dr. James Park, a neuroscientist she'd met at a tech conference 2 years ago, smiled at her. They'd been dating for 18 months now, taking it slow, letting Tyler set the pace. James had a nephew with autism and understood, without having to be taught, how to be present for both of them. He'd never tried to replace Marcus, had never wanted to. He'd simply wanted to be part of their lives, and Tyler had gradually, cautiously let him in. "He gets it from you," James said, squeezing her hand. Alicia shook her head. "He gets it from himself. I just made sure he had the space to grow." Meridian Industries had grown exponentially, worth $28 billion now, with Alicia as CEO of the parent company and her original co-founders running divisions. She'd been on the cover of Time magazine, had testified before Congress about AI ethics, had endowed a research center for neurodevelopmental disabilities at Stanford. But none of it meant as much as watching Tyler win first place in the science fair, seeing him accept his medal with a huge smile, searching the crowd until he found her and signed "I love you" in ASL. After the ceremony, as they walked to the parking lot, Tyler between them, Alicia saw a familiar figure standing by a beat-up Honda Civic. Marcus, older, grayer, wearing a delivery service uniform. He'd clearly been making a delivery to the school and had somehow seen the science fair banner. Tyler didn't recognize him. It had been 5 years. And Tyler had been 7 the last time he'd seen his father. James glanced at Alicia, silently asking if she wanted to leave, but she shook her head. This needed to happen eventually. "Marcus," she said evenly as they approached. He looked up and she saw the devastation in his eyes. Not fresh grief, but the worn, permanent kind that came from years of living with irrevocable loss. "Alicia, I saw the science fair. I didn't know he'd be here. I didn't mean to." "It's fine," she said. Then to Tyler, "Sweetheart, this is Marcus Reynolds. He's someone I used to know." Tyler, brilliant and perceptive, looked between them and understanding crossed his face. "You're my biological father." Statement, not question. Marcus nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Yes, Tyler, I'm so sorry. I made terrible choices. And I know," Tyler interrupted, his voice matter-of-fact in the way autistic children often were, stating truth without malice. "Mom told me when I asked. She said you weren't ready to be a parent, especially to someone like me, and you chose to leave. She said it wasn't my fault, and that some people aren't capable of the love we deserve." He paused. "She also said you made your choices, and you have to live with them, and that I should focus on the people who choose to stay." He looked up at James, who'd been coming to his therapy sessions, his school events, his sensory-friendly movie nights for over a year. "James chooses to stay. So does Mom. That's enough for me." Marcus's face crumbled. I would give anything to go back." "But you can't," Tyler said simply. "That's how time works. Linear progression. You can't undo your choices, only live with the consequences." He turned to Alicia. "Can we go home now? I want to show James how I'm going to optimize the neural network code." "Of course, sweetheart," Alicia said, putting her arm around him. As they walked away, Marcus called out, "Alicia, wait, please. I know I don't deserve anything, but could I at least know about him? Maybe a photo sometimes, or..." She turned back, studying him. The man who'd once held her future in his hands and crushed it, who'd valued ambition over love, status over family, fantasy over reality. He looked broken, genuinely broken, and once upon a time that would have satisfied something in her. But she'd moved past satisfaction years ago. She'd moved past anger, past hurt, past everything but indifference. "No," she said quietly. "You signed away your rights, Marcus. You chose this. Tyler has a father figure in his life now, someone who shows up, who loves him without conditions, who chose us. You wanted freedom from responsibility? You got it. What you don't get is access to the child you abandoned when it's convenient for your guilt." "I've lost everything," he whispered. "Yes, you have," she agreed, "and you did it to yourself. I didn't destroy your life, Marcus. I simply refused to let you destroy mine. There's a difference. The company you were fired from, you embezzled from it. The relationship that ended, you built it on betrayal. The son you lost, you walked away from him. I just documented it, made sure there were consequences, made sure you couldn't hurt us again." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You know what's funny? For the first year after everything happened, I wondered if I'd been too harsh. If maybe I should have just divorced you quietly, let you go with some dignity. But then I'd remember you planning to steal from our account, planning to marry Jessica before you even told me you wanted a divorce, planning to abandon Tyler, your own son, because his disability was inconvenient. And I'd realize, no, I wasn't too harsh. I was exactly harsh enough." "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I know you are. Now, when you have nothing left to lose and everything to regret. But Tyler doesn't need an absent father's apology. He needs the present, devoted people who choose him every single day. That's not you, Marcus. That will never be you." She glanced back at Tyler and James, waiting by the car. Tyler already pulling out his tablet to show James something. "I have a beautiful life now, a son who's thriving, a company that's changing the world, a partner who loves both of us. I built all of it from the ashes of what you tried to destroy, and it's better than anything we ever had together. That's not revenge, that's resurrection. I'm not the woman you left anymore. I'm the woman who survived you, and that woman doesn't look back. Alicia, goodbye, Marcus. I hope you find peace someday, but you won't find it with us." She walked away, not looking back, her heels clicking on the pavement with finality. Tyler waved enthusiastically when she reached the car, already talking animatedly about improving his project for the regional competition. James opened her door, kissed her cheek, whispered, "You okay?" And she nodded, because she was. She really, truly was. As they drove away, Tyler chattering happily in the back seat, James's hand warm in hers, Alicia caught one last glimpse of Marcus in the side mirror, a diminished figure standing alone in an empty parking lot, watching the life he'd thrown away drive off without him. She'd told him the truth. She'd crushed him, but not with malice, not with cruelty. She'd crushed him with the simple, devastating weight of consequence, with the proof that betrayal destroys the betrayer far more than the betrayed, and with the undeniable evidence that some choices can never be undone. Marcus Reynolds would live the rest of his life knowing he'd held everything that mattered and let it slip through his fingers for nothing. That was punishment enough. That was forever enough. And Alicia Chen? She'd live the rest of her life knowing she'd taken broken pieces and built a masterpiece, that she'd turned betrayal into empire, pain into power, and loss into a love that was real and lasting and chosen. She'd learned the hardest truth, that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction at all. It's building something so beautiful, so complete, so perfectly your own that the person who tried to break you becomes irrelevant to your happiness. That was the victory Marcus would never understand, even as he spent forever crushed beneath the weight of it. And that made all the difference.